the first thing we got to do today is to write an equation for the line containing these points. So if you're going to have to write an equation from a line containing 2 points, you should know that the first thing you need to do is to find the slope, because you can get the slope if you have 2 points. So we'll shorten this up a little bit so you can still see it, but I can still write. Find the slope. So that's 3/2 minus 1/2 over 2 minus 3. Well, 3/2 minus 1/2 is 2/2. 2/2 is 1, because 2 over 2 is just 1. And on the bottom, you have 2 minus 3. That's a -1. 1 divided by -1 is -1. If you're confused about this, 3 over 2 minus 1 over 2 is 2 over 2. 2 over 2 is just 1. So that's your slope. That means you know this much. You know that y equals mx plus b now has a slope of -1. We don't normally write -1 as a slope. We just put a negative sign, but today I'll write a -1. Alright, so once you find the slope, put it in for m, and now you have a choice. Which one of those points are you going to use to go back and solve for the y-intercept? You can use 3 and 1/2 or 2 and 3/2. I'm going to use the 3 and the 1/2. So let's go down here and use this point, 3, 1/2. That's xy. So if I put a 1/2 in for y and a 3 in for x, I now have to go back and solve for the y-intercept. -1 times 3 is -3. Move that -3 over to the left-hand side and make it plus. So 1/2, we'll move that over a little bit. Well, I can't, too late. 1/2 plus 3 equals b. We move this to the left side. So now 3 plus 1/2. 3 plus 1/2 is 3 1/2. So 3 1/2 equals b. Now don't forget, your slope was -1. So fill in what you just found here for that b. So that means your equation is y equals, now notice I'm not putting -1, I'm just writing the negative sign, -x. That's the way it's supposed to be written. -x plus 3 1/2. Step 1 is you have to find the slope. The slope is 8 minus 2 over 6 minus 4. That'll be 6 over 2, which is 3. Now choose one of those 2 points. It's not going to make a difference. You should still get the same answer. I'll choose 4 and 2. So you have to start with y equals mx plus b. You know that the slope is now 3, so substitute that in for m. And if we're using 4, 2, that is xy. 4, 2. xy. So we're going to plug in 2 for y and 4 for x. And then solve for b. So 2 equals 12 plus b. Move the 12 to the left, change the sign, come up with a -10. That means that the equation is y equals 3x minus. Write an equation in slope-intercept form for the line that has the indicated slope and contains the given point. This is the same thing that we just did, except you're not given 2 points. They're giving you the slope to start with, and they're giving you the point that you have to use. So we'll shorten this up a little bit so you can still see it to copy it down. Okay, so if you're going to use y equals mx plus b, in the last problem we had to find the slope. In this one, it's given to you. It's 2/3. And you have the point of 6, 9 that you have to use. So that's what we will put in there. The point is 6, 9, and that is x, y. So y is 9, and x is 6. Now solve for b. We're going to have 2/3 times 6. That's the same as 2 times 6 is 12 over 3. And 12 over 3 is 4. And move that 4 to the right, change the sign, and you'll come up with an answer of 5 for b. Remember, you've got to plug that in back here to create your equation. So y equals 2/3 x plus 5. Write the equations in slope-intercept form for the line that contains the given point and is parallel and perpendicular to the given line. This means you have two equations to find. It's giving you an equation here. The problem gives you this equation. You have to find two lines. The first one has to be parallel to the given line, and it's got to pass through this point. The second one must be perpendicular to the given line, and it's got to pass through that same point. So you have two things to find. This is not rough at all. We'll just take it one step at a time. First, whenever you have to find a parallel line or a perpendicular line, you have to know the slope of the original line, because the slope of the original line has to be used in the other two problems. So this equation here at the bottom, the first step is to change this into slope-intercept form so you can find the slope. That means you keep the y term and the sign in front of it on the left. Move the x term to the right, change the sign. And of course the plus 9 stays on the right. Divide everything by what's with the y. So those cancel out, you get a y. -1 over -3, that's just 1/3. And 9 divided by -3. So y equals 1/3 x minus 3. That's your original equation. And the reason why we did this, to change it, is so we could find the slope, which is this. That's going to come in handy. Let's see if you can remember this from geometry. If two lines are parallel, they have the same what? Starts with an S. Slope, yeah. If two lines are parallel, then they have the same slope. So we will do the parallel line first. And we'll even note it right here, parallel. If you're going to find the equation of a line that's parallel to y equals 1/3 x minus 3, then it's got to have a 1/3 as the slope. So if you start with y equals mx plus b, the first thing you do is put in the slope from what you just found, 1/3. Now don't forget, the problem told you that this line that is parallel to the original one has to pass through what point? What point do we have to go through? 4, 2, yeah. So we have to make it go through 4, 2. Here's the 4, 2. Remember, that's x, y. So plug in 2 for y and 4 for x. And solve for b. So that is 2 equals 4/3 plus b. You have to move that 4/3 to the left, change the sign. Now 2 minus 4/3. A common denominator is 3. So you would end up with 6/3 minus 4/3. That's the same thing as 2/3. Now just plug in what you found back into this. And that gives you your first answer. Y equals 1/3 x plus 2/3. And that's the line that's parallel. That's not an 11 in parentheses. That's the symbol for parallel. So you're halfway done with the problem. You still have another half of it to go. Perpendicular. Do you remember what the difference is between the slopes of perpendicular lines? One's negative and one's positive. That is right. So look at the original equation. Remember, we put it into a different form so we could find the slope. This slope is 1/3, but the line that's perpendicular to it is not going to have a slope of 1/3. What do I do to this 1/3 to get the new slope?
-3/1.
Yeah, -3/1, or just what? -3. You flip the fraction and change the sign. So we will go down here for the perpendicular part of the problem and write this. Perpendicular. All right, and it's not 1/3, it is now -3x plus b. Y equals -3x plus b, because we changed this slope here by flipping it and changing the sign. And we're going to use it here. And what point do I have to go through? 4,2. So we have to use the 4,2 point. Okay, so plug it in. 2 for y and 4 for x. Solve for b. So 2 equals a -12 plus b. And I ran completely out of space, so I have to go to the right. Now I can fit it in underneath this. We'll have 2 plus 12. Move that -12 to the left, change the sign. And you will come out with 14. And remember, you have to put this in right here to get your answer. So y equals a -3x plus 14. So we know that we have to change this into slope-intercept form. So keep the 2y where it's at and move the x term to the right, and then divide everything by 2. So we know that the slope is -2. But look at this. It's got to cross at the y-intercept. This line that we're making must go through the y-intercept. What is the y-intercept of the equation we just worked with? What's the slope of the equation we just did? What's the slope of this equation? -2, right. What's the y-intercept of it? 6, that's right. Can you figure out the xy coordinates of this y-intercept?
Yes.
What are they? Okay, we'll look at it. Here's a graph. We'll put it on the screen. And it goes right here. Here's a graph. Now the y-intercept was 6. So where do I put a dot? 6 where? On the y-axis. Okay, there's my dot. What is that point? I mean the two numbers that create that point. 0, 6 is right. So that's the point that you have to go through with this one. So we know that the slope has got to be changed here. What is the slope of the perpendicular line if the one perpendicular to it is -2? What do I do to that -2?
Make it 1/2.
Make it positive and flip it so you get 1/2, right. So the slope is 1/2 and the point is 0.6. With that information, you can do what we've done a few times already today, which is to find that equation. Use the slope to determine whether the following lines are perpendicular, parallel, or neither. You're given 2 points. What should you do with those 2 points in line 1? What should you find?
Find the slope.
Find the slope, right, and find the slope for line 2. And compare them to see if they're parallel, perpendicular, or neither. Here's an example of that. Are these two lines parallel, perpendicular, or neither? 2 and then 1/2. Are they perpendicular?
No,
Why
it's
not?
negative.
Yeah, one's got to be negative, so these would be neither. What about this? Are these two lines parallel, perpendicular, or neither? They are perpendicular because if you flip this and change the sign, you get 3. What about these two lines? Parallel, perpendicular, or neither? Parallel. Why? That's right, they have the same slope, so parallel. That's all that is. You just have to find the slope for each one.